back, Smite fans, to week number 4 of the EU Smite Challenger Circuit. We've got a great one for you over the horizon after a 2-0 for Hex Mambo starts off our day. As you can tell behind me, we've got the Highland Ravens up against the Styx Ferrymen. My name is Dolson, and Gormizer is back.
Wow!
Is this your first cast back from vacation? And you're feeling it. You're feeling good,
day,
refreshed, ready to go. You did some super secret recording that the community can't know about yet.
I will say, one downside. So, for those who either don't follow me on Twitter, so I went to the beach.
Yeah, you did.
Day 3 was out for a little longer than the sunscreen dictated. My shoulders real itchy right now.
Yeah, but the rest of you?
The rest of me is like...
It looks great.
Bronze Adonis,
yes,
baby.
Yeah, bronze Adonis.
But the back is definitely like needing an itch.
Well, luckily for you, terms of service dictate that shirt stays on, Gore, so we won't see the rest of that sunburn throughout the day. Today, Hex Mambo started off our EU SEC matches with a 2-0 win over the Gladiators. Highland Ravens versus Styx Ferrymen is what you are about to watch. And then if you want to watch the Wargs versus the Scorpions, is that tomorrow? How many days are in June? 30 days 30. Have September, so April, June.
Wait, do you not know the knuckle thing?
You do the knuckle thing. I do the
January,
same.
March,
Wargs versus Scorpions. That'll be tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Highland Ravens up at 2-1. Styx Ferrymen at 1-2. So the EU standing still pretty important at this point. Hex Mambo starting to distance themselves. Highland Ravens looking to keep pace, just that one game behind if they're able to win. Styx Ferrymen, of course, closing that gap to the second place spot. So you look at the two teams that are playing here today, Gore. Highland Ravens, the storyline with this squad, pretty obvious, I think, over the last couple of weeks. Adapting, retired from competitive Smite play. What was that, a year or so ago?
He retired, then he came back. Then he retired. And now he's back
and
again,
now he's
baby.
back.
Part 3.
and he's playing with a very, very talented squad here. The Highland Ravens, Cxnnahh, Adapting, Angry, Calvin, and VaporishCoast. So, of course, headlined by Adapting just because of tenure, right, Gore? But still surrounded by a very, very solid squad here in EU.
Yeah, I think this is just a nuts team. Like, with Adapting, it goes from, hey, they're really good at Smite to, okay, this team's absolutely stacked, right? And that's the big difference maker for them. You've got a really good pillar, I think, on each side of the map. Cxnnahh, as well as Coast, are really going to be able to hold their own. Coast to the point where I think they have been the most consistent carry in Europe over the last few weeks, because even in a bad game, Coast is somehow positive, still getting like triple kills, things like that. So they've got a lot of experience behind them, as you had highlighted it. Bringing in Adapting brings even more of that experience and brings it at I think a very important portion of the game, right? Not just in the jungle, but from the SBL level. So being able to help these guys that have competed, have been able to showcase a lot of work, get themselves on land quite a few times, but more specifically, now giving them that experience a lot more consistent week to week and giving them that next level insight so that they can potentially become the future of the SBL.
It's kind of unique looking at Adapting. We get the last 6 games played on our website with all the info. Aru Scorpions set last week, and then back in early December was the last time we saw Adapting play, and then before that had been a little while. So if the Styx Ferrymen want a chance to fight up against this Highland Ravens squad, some important members of their team are going to have to step up here as well. Of course, this squad made up of BeAzrael, iceice, GunTTeRR, Rottwen, and StreakUp. So Rottwen from that Gilded Gladiators team recently joined the Styx Ferrymen team, hoping to enact some growth for this team moving forward.
Yeah, and this is one that is going to be, I think, just interesting to see how it works out. It's not often that you see, I guess, you know what, that was about to be a blatant lie. We do see changes, and specifically roster changes. Yeah. Halfway through Phase 2 is usually when it happens.
Not at the SPL.
Well, last year it hit the Scarabs real hard in the middle of the year. So
yeah, that's true.
And admittedly, that was maybe more than just teamwork that filtered into it. But yeah, it's not something that's uncommon, but then getting used to that team again is, I think, a big deal. Rottwen, though, someone that I think has been a phenomenal support player and I think is going to do a phenomenal job, again, surrounded by a bunch of talented players. It really does come down to this point, just the competitive nature of both of these teams. I think the Ravens have a lot of history, competitive history, and success behind them, because even if you exclude Adapting Angry has been top of the SCC in Europe for 3 years running, right? Like things like that. You go over to Coast. Coast has several successful LAN runs on console prior to being in the SCC. So a lot of this for the Ferryman to me is not just, okay, cool, how well can you work with some new pieces, but how well can you handle the consistency that is going to be the other side?
Right, because the other side is a few pieces that have really come together and made such a terrifying and consistent roster in the Ravens. Can the Styx Ferrymen find themselves an advantage, potentially, in picks and bans for game number 1? That is the question. Ravens will have that first pick answered back with a couple by the Styx Ferrymen. Yamoja taken away right away, and last time we saw some interesting overall priority, Gore. Still, the Raven was first overall pick in a game or two. Saw a little bit of that in the SPL here this past week. But taking away the Yamoja from Rottwen, I think a good solid start. And then honestly, you might raise your eyebrows at this Thoth ban. But when you remember that it's Angry on the other side, and Angry is just so good at that pick, I think makes a lot of sense.
And that's the weird thing with tackling picks and bans. I think actually at any level now, because in SPL we've seen a few picks, and I anticipate we're going to see some here, that are just like the meta. Like that's the, you got to get rid of them because you don't want to play against them. I think we're in a weird position, and maybe one of the first times in years that it's happened, where truly you could have 6 bans that are just targeted, right? Like you could just have only targeted bans, things that are going to be very specific. Admittedly, some of those overlap, right? I think Uller is a really good example of that. Someone who is very good in multiple roles, multiple players are going to be able to play him successfully. And so he becomes a meta ban, despite the fact that it is like, hey, I don't want that guy to deal with it.
And Heimdall always comes to my mind with the Ravens when VaporishCoast is playing. As of late, though, the Chernobog has been very, very good for VaporishCoast, so I think no surprise that the Styx Ferrymen take away the Chernobog here. In just 2 games last week, this Highland Ravens squad picked Chernobog twice when they combined 10, 0, and 12 for VaporishCoast. So a very solid look. Heimdall left open, and Heimdall is oftentimes insta-lock first pick for VaporishCoast in this team. Going to get overlooked this time in exchange for the Raven.
And that's an interesting change to me. And it's, I think, twofold. One, where this Raven's going to fit in, and the fact that he's locked in so early. Because, we've been seeing a lot more Raven, I think, lately. I can't remember necessarily last week because I was gone, but at least the week before that.
You're working on that
being able to come in a little more often. And it was up against things that were also on the rise. Like, we were seeing a lot of Poseidon in week number 2 in the SBL. Guess what Raven does? He deals with Poseidon incredibly well. But locking him in super early, he's still got a lot of good things, right? He's still got his self-heal. He's still got good damage. He's still got the Piranha Onslaught to close those gaps. And, of course, he's got it just straight-up immunity frames built into his kit. That, in and of itself, is usually a reason that you're going to be pretty happy. Whether he's going to solo lane or not is the weird question that I can actually pose, because it feels like someone who can flex.
I assume solo. It feels like it has been a hefty majority solo. Damage mitigation still reigning supreme.
And a lot of warriors in the.
A lot of warriors, yeah. So my initial inclination would be Robin solo still for the Highland Ravens here, and they get some good early game, made of a break in the mid game, and then good late game with this Huang. Niflin always likes to talk about levels 1 through 3 is really when this god can exert some pressure in mid, potentially find a first blood. Bit of a low, not bad, but not the best in the mid game, and then by the end of the game, Huang is just pouring out damage numbers, so that's something to look forward to for the Ravens here as well. Baba Yaga plus Fafnir with a Nemesis up top, round out the top 3 now for the Styx Ferrymen. Gore, we've seen this rise of Fafnir as well. The team-wide coerce, as well as a lot of the other utility in that kit, very valued in this current meta.
And you already got a Nemesis. You know she's going to be hitting at least a little bit auto-attack, maybe not full-centric, depends on the build. But like you can anticipate, okay, that's at least one auto-attacker. We're still looking for a Hunter. Guess what? That's another auto-attacker guaranteed that you're going to be picking up, and that's the Jing in this case. So you already feel like you've got good synergy. The downside of the Fafnir, and we've been seeing this time and time again, is not that, like his strengths, cool, big team-wide coerce, as you had mentioned, has really good chase down capabilities. Single target CC. That's where things start to fall apart. Is just if you miss your hammer, or I guess in the dragon form, if you miss your spit, that's it for you. You got to rely on everybody else. Baba Yaga has some really interesting CC, but not necessarily consistent. And the same thing, Nemesis has, soft CC, has the slows, but nothing as hard as like a stun or a root to keep people locked in place. So that's the only thing right now that I think the Ferrymen are really starting to lack, is that consistent hard CC that is going to hit every time.
I gotta say, I am slightly disappointed in adapting in that we haven't seen Thor in any of his games. I mean, no reason to. Thor is not towards the top of the meta. Just such a storied pick, and I love Thor. And so, we're getting another Fenrir game. Fine, looked good last week. It's got its value. But I want to see the adapting Thor. We're all itching for it. One of the staple adapting picks on his return to competitive Smite play. That said, I think Fenrir was solid last week for this Highland Ravens squad when they picked it. Should be solid here moving forward as well. So, AMC over in the duo lane, not something we have often seen here as of late. Normally we've been a mid lane AMC, and the Styx Ferrymen have a solid draft going into game 1 against the Highland Ravens. Remember, the Ravens, if they get a win here, they're just 1 game shy of first place. Styx Ferrymen trying to tie things up for second. And so a competitive match of EU-SEC about to kick off. And Gore, did something catch your eye there at the end of Picks and Bans?
No, I was just sincerely hoping that they would do something wild, like put AMC mid anyway, and you Huang in the duo lane. Like,
we have seen mages in duo.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to say. Is do I necessarily think it's like the greatest choice in this? Absolutely not. I actually think you Huang in mid, to me at least, makes a lot of sense, because as you had mentioned, and as we've talked about over weeks in the SPL, those first 3 levels, especially with a Fenrir beside you, should be a very controlling portion for mid. And getting that amount of early lead up against someone like a Baba Yaga is a lot easier for you, right? Like, someone who's going to be stacking, and while it might be easier right now with the way the meta is, and of course Baba's passive, it's just so much better, I think, for you to be able to have this control. You immediately have one lane that you know is going to be successful. AMC, usually a little stronger. I guess one can kind of shake back and forth depending on the supports over here. But I expect a little faster clear and a little more controlled clear than what a Jing expects. So your left side of the map from mid over probably feels pretty solid.
Yeah, you'd think.
And there could be kill potential.
You would think. Adapting does send his jump out, but doesn't end up connecting on any targets for the stun. iceice getting aggressive. Takes about half of Angry's HP and damage. Neither jungler goes towards Blink early. Of course, Adapting will have the leap in to potentially set up for some kills. iceice will have the double dash in. But that sudden Blink initiation just won't be there early on here in this game. I mean, I know we're still in the early, but I start to look at some of the late game picks that we've got here as well. GunTTeRR specifically on this Baba Yaga. Angry, of course, will scale up just fine. And both Hunters really start to swing on late. In a region, Gore, where games can kind of slow down, wouldn't be surprised if these teams are okay with some scaling.
Yeah, honestly, and that's something we've seen a good amount, right, in the past, where it's just a little bit of hanging out, a little bit of farming, and something that I think Europe fits pretty well. And honestly, this is a good pace of the game for it. It's been 1 week. No, so
yeah, it's been
difficult to kill people.
So difficult.
Yeah. That is, in a way, kind of what that song's about.
Yeah, it kind of tracks.
But it has just been difficult for these early game kills, and unless it's a very specific scenario, and I'm talking a Yu Huang, on the ready with a Fenrir full passive ready for a stun, it's just so hard to kill somebody. I mean, even right there, right? In most circumstances, especially if you've got like a hammer or anything, that's a dead AMC 2-3 patches ago. And so it is impressive to see how these teams have managed to handle that, to the point where we still see 1 minute, minute and a half, 2 minute first bloods. But they're not as common. And so that's like, where is the more likely first blood to me? It still feels like mid lane, although it's difficult to lock down a Nemesis and a Baba Yaga. And so it might just be over here in duo.
Rottwen is low, but he'll be able to jump out just fine. Need a bit more damage. What a unique pick. I'm just thinking about this for VaporishCoast. Feels like when it's not been the Heimdall, it's at least been another either safe or just straight up auto attack style of Hunter. Been Chernobog, been Ram, Jing every once in a while. It's been a minute since I remember watching VaporishCoast play like an ability-based burst damage style of ADC. So I think this will be a pretty unique look for Coast over on the left side of the map. Luckily for Coast, I think when you're going up against a Fafnir and a Jing in lane, you should be able to hang out, scale up just fine. I do want to throw a little shout out in the Ganesha skin. I can't tell if it freaks me out or not. It's really cool, and I want to make sure that's known. But there's something about the face and the trunk that are just kind of sending me on a bit
unsettling.
Of a trip. Yeah,
like just a little bit.
Look at it.
That pull you out. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Is it a moth?
I can't remember seeing this skin. I don't think I've played with this one.
No, I'm not
because
sure
I'm almost always on the yarn.
Could be an early kill. BeAzrael does not have ultimate adapting, does no beads for the Bellona, and there's first blood to the Highland Ravens and their jungler adapting.
I mean, that's just a good kill. That could have gone either way.
What is that?
And the way that it pushed forward. So that is...
It's because his arms are hanging off his arms?
I was trying to think of the term. I feel like I've seen something like this. Like, it feels like Willy Wonka-esque, I guess, in a way. Like...
Yeah.
Not even that. Weirder than that, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I got us off. And
it was a toy in the early, or either late 90s or early 2000s that makes me think a lot of this, and I can't remember the name.
Well, it'll come to us randomly in about...
It starts with an F, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
like
it'll come to us in like 30 minutes, kind of random.
Completely irrelevant. Like, we'll be in game 2 or something.
Right. Then you'll snap your fingers, you're going to just say the name, and I'm going to immediately know what you're talking about. Did have the opportunity to talk about that because the game, of course, starts off a bit slow, but speeds up a little bit as Adapting and Cxnnahh combine for a kill onto BeAzrael on the right side of the map. You got Ragnarok, you got no beads, no ult on Azrael. Seemed like a simple place for a gank.
Yeah, this is something that I think, again, you're going to have some difficulties. Jingwei's in one lane, you've got a Fafnir over there, and you've got Baba and Nemesis. This Bellona is going to be a very easy pressure point for you if you're the Ravens, to be able to maybe gank a few times. I'm expecting a lot from specifically Adapting, maybe making that one happen. Especially with the double assassin, right? That's a lot of damage, a lot of lockdown, a lot of chase down. The other side, it feels like AMC, and I think once Ganesh is out of that lane, you're good to get over there. But while Ganesh is there, you know, AMC is not known for being highly mobile. Right now, Coast has like no mana to work with either. The only way an AMC typically is going to kill you or stop you from ganking them is killing you by just throwing out the stinger, shredding your prots, hitting you with the bees, then slamming a couple of hard-hitting autos. And that's usually enough. But when you have, you know, now full Transcendence is going to start stacking, you've got enough mana, but specifically a Ganesh beside you, he just hits Silence, and that gives that AMC the space necessary to get out of there. And so I think that that's something they need to work out for.
Adapting had to sidestep the hammer. Important, because he was low, iceice had ultimate. Rottwen, of course, did too, but doesn't mean much there. So Adapting will be able to get out of dodge. So stacking items, my goodness, look for the Highland Ravens in this early game. Soul Eater, plus Transcendence, plus Warlock Staff. Another Transcendence for VaporishCoast. It's only Calvin with a little bit of early pressure here, Gore. He's gone Chronos Pendant first on the Ganesh. That's something that we've seen Awesome Jake specifically at the SPL level go for a couple of times. Seems like that style of build starting to transcend the leagues here just a bit. A little bit more damage, of course, cooldown. Mifflin always shouts out the MP5. And I guess helps give Ganesh a little bit of extra strength early on in the game.
Honestly, I think it's good for
Pillars.
Those moments. Again, well, you get Dharmic Pillars a lot more often. The one that really stands out to me, again, having the Ohm up a little more often, that silence is just devastating in the right circumstances. And so I think that's something that this Ganesh is going to be able to play around.
Wow, Coast dodging out so much. Stinger connects on a StreakUp. Calvin close by. Will not use the Dharmic Pillars, and when the cooldown is refreshed as much as it is, super simple decision-making there for VaporishCoast. Walk up, toss the Stinger out, and see what you can get done. Now we're going to have a 3 versus 3 around the purple buff. As Dharmic Pillars flies in, Coast just now gets Stinger back. Purple buff was dropped, looks like picked up by the Highland Ravens. So if nothing else, at least a successful purple buff invade for the Order side.
And I mean, you mentioned it, but very, very low investment for them as well. You lose Ganesh ult, but Coast pops has it back already, right? That's the glory of that cooldown. You have an opportunity there as well to just force the Ferryman to play awkwardly. Either they fight, and I think they lose that fight if they try to take it, or they run away, and you get a purple buff and a red buff, right? Small bits of farm but it starts to count up over time. And you know, with the neutral objectives right now and mid camps going the way towards the Ravens, it all really starts to stack up and really pay off. To the point where, what is that, 3 levels up from the enemy support for Coast?
Yep.
Not unheard of. But at this point in the game, especially with the way things are going, still stacking Thebes for Rottwen, that just means that Coast is going to be able to relax a little more in this. Like, cool, if you hit me with the stun, maybe I have to use my beads, but there's a good chance Coast could just turn it around in a 1v2. We just saw him almost do it.
Coast is absolutely the type to take those types of fights, too, even if it's not the best of odds. Got a very Han Solo vibe to him. Never tell me the odds kind of guy, you know? I'll look down a 2v1, I'll fly into an asteroid field. I don't need C-3PO in the back telling me what's up, what to do, what not to do. So I expect a bit of that.
It's one of those, I want, like, calculate the odds. Don't tell me before, tell me after. Like, when they're successful, tell me, like, how wild is it that I did that?
Right.
And that's what I think Coast would want. Like,
but also, if I fail, don't tell me like you should have known, right?
There's two out of 3 scenarios of don't tell me the odds. Only one where it works.
And it's if I beat them.
And it's if I beat them.
Otherwise, I don't want to hear them. It looks like this lane's starting to stabilize a bit for Chxnnahh. BeAzrael forced out of lane. Does not have teleport for a minute and a half. So going to be relatively comfortable farming for another wave or 2. But we're not worried about the right side of the map. We're worried about the left. As the Dharmic Pillars through from Calvin. And that silence score, you're right, devastating. Rottwen unable to do anything about it. Though some damage from the firebolts out. Adapting will take some. Use the beads. Leaps away. In and out cleanly for the Highland Ravens. And another pick over to the order side around the red buff.
And honestly, what I love the most out of that is you get to see, admittedly, maybe a couple of mistakes or things that don't quite go the way the Ravens would have liked it to, and that they just adapt better than what they get out of it. Yes, adapting's on the team, I get it. Ferryman, unfortunately, in a struggle, and I didn't even think about this combo, but being able to, and it wasn't even seen there, but having like a stinger into a Dharmic Pillars, how hard that's going to hit, especially with a Fenrir who can then make sure it happens.
Yep.
There's a lot for the Ravens that if they decide you're going to die, they have the tools to make it happen. And all of that's foregoing Chxnnahh. That last fight was foregoing Coast. It was just that mid 3v3, and they were so successful with it.
I exclaimed there because I couldn't believe Dharmic Pillars were back already. I guess that's what Chronos Pendant gets you. He just used it. It's already a quarter of the way back. Look, I know Dharmic Pillars have a low cooldown. It's 30 seconds. All right. I'm bought in. Look,
what is the base cooldown on that? That feels wildly
low. It's gotta be lower. Where is it?
75.
Yeah, 75 is the base cooldown.
Which is, like, admittedly, that's pretty low for most ults. I mean, like, if the average is 90, right?
Right.
So anything less than 90 feels significant.
So then that's
20% cooldown
7.5 seconds would be 10%, right?
Yeah, so
15 seconds.
15, yeah.
And then you get the tick off every so often. So
that's a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So you're looking at a 50-second cooldown that then gets reduced over the course of its time.
That's nuts.
It's like a 40-second cooldown,
yeah, you're
probably.
waiting in like the amount of fights you can force to happen because of
well, and you get good damage and good space control. Because, you know, at the SPL level, I'll never claim to know more than Awesome Jake, but I think that some of the Chronos Pendant style builds obviously work better on certain supports than others. Synergize maybe better with certain supports. I think Ganesh might be one that I'm fully bought in on. I mean, Dharmic Pillar is low enough cooldown anyway. I suppose the counter argument is it's already a low cooldown. Why do you need it to be that much more low?
But then I posit, look at Ra, right? Like one of the best, like Ra's ult is incredibly low cooldown already, but that's a nice ult to have up every 30 seconds. And if you can do the same thing, I think Dharmic Pillars, team fight impact, is a little higher than what you get out of Raw Beam. A good Raw Beam is unbeatable, but a good Dharmic Pillars is going to be a lot more consistent and around like Gold Furies, Pyromancers as we just saw, but Fire Giants in the future. It's either Shred or, like you said, Space Control that the Ravens are going to have. And it's almost guaranteed. And with Coast having the inherent cooldown that you get when you pick up the Stinger, I mean, that is a deadly duo lane.
Yeah, you're right. But it does force is the wrong word. Does, I think, come along with it an expectation for a certain style of play. I mean, if you go Chronos Pendant on Ganesh, I think you're expected at that point to be roaming around, dropping ult, right, starting to help your team snowball the early game a bit. Because if you get Chronos Pendant on Ganesh, and you never use it, then yes, it's just a bad investment. But Calvin has been very on point with dropping it on buffs, dropping it on pyros. And so early on in this game, though a low kill game, have liked some of the theory crafting I've seen from the Highland Ravens squad, giving them a 2,500 gold lead and about 3,000 experience. There's another Dharmic Pillars for you. A good silence, but it's beadsed out by StreakUp, who will have to use the airstrike, and unfortunately for Coast, brings the Stinger a bit into a threatening area. But ult beads off of StreakUp for pretty low investment from the Ravens.
Yeah, 2 ults, but like we've mentioned, one of them's going to come back. That silence needs to do work, though.
Coast kind of walks back forward.
Maybe not.
Uses his beads, adapting us close by. Gunter's going to rotate out of mid. Both mid laners here, so it's everyone but the solos. Azrael goes back to base, has teleport. Kana does not. Kana hovering towards mid, but it looks like just some poking and prodding. And back to our lanes we go. I think that would have been a tough fight to win for the Ravens. Calvin had already dropped Dharmic Pillars. No Stinger for Coast. And the Styx Ferrymen had a bit of oomph in the early start of that fight.
And honestly, I think I like that fight for the Ferrymen, if not for anything other than they just denied a little bit of farming for the Ravens, right? A lot of the farm has been going well in their favor to the point where it was 2 levels for a lot of people up until recently. Now it's only hovering around maybe 1 level for pretty much everyone. But being able to close that gap, even just slightly, feels really solid for them considering how well most of the neutral camps have been going for them. Hell, even some of the steals that have been going for the Ravens, all in that favor. And when you're starting to look at 15 minutes in, you know, Gold Fury's on the horizon, I give it to the team that has the Dharmic Pillars at first. But I think the fight is going to matter most.
Ooh, that's pretty good from Calvin. Couple takes on a Rottwen, 1 onto StreakUp. Now Gunter locked into place, silence out, but again a kill escapes, and the Styx Ferrymen avoid losing any of their team members. Looks like iceice and adapting scrapped out just a bit. Of course, adapting will be able to sustain up just fine. And adapting hurts at this point in the game. I was wondering if we'd see a Stinger from Coast. As adapting has fully stacked his Transcendence, got a full hi-rez. The iceice has one as well, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of burst coming out of this Fenrir should its target get hit.
And it's always like that little bit of synergy, right? Like, I think iceice Hydra's works really well, but you highlighted, I think, the bigger difference, which is the Golden Blade early for iceice. Really good stat stick, but in comparison to just the power spike that adapting's going to have from a full-built Transcendence, it kind of balances itself out. Then you look at the Hydras, synergizes with both of them a lot, but having the stun into an auto for a Fenrir means you're getting a lot of guaranteed damage versus what you hope will happen for iceice.
Yeah. A good call for the Styx Ferrymen. They are 3,000 gold down.
This could be huge.
And that's going to shrink up a bit. Styx Ferrymen simply walk in half this gold lead. And though it wasn't overwhelming or insurmountable yet, Gore, the Highland Ravens were playing with a bit of momentum. And I think the Styx Ferrymen do a great job there of just pumping the brakes.
Yeah, being able to find that in like the perfect opportunity as well. A lot of people were backed from the Ravens. Those that weren't backed were too far away to hear anything and potentially come over and fight. And so you get a really good Gold Fury opportunity. You chip away, as you highlighted, at that gold lead and have it. And you get some much-needed team-wide experience as well. Again, everybody was falling behind about a level, still mostly just a level behind, but there's a lot more parity that's on the board for the Ferryman. And that's going to slow things down. I mean, you've got double assassin, those two, as a general rule of thumb, really good at just rolling over you and really kind of solving their own problems by killing you quickly. I think that was a good one to sneak away, especially with the Ravens' potential to burn down objectives with that Dharmic Pillars.
Yeah, Ravens head on over to the Pyro. Is this going to get called out, though? Rottwen, Azrael, iceice, GunTTeRR, all of them here. Gets dropped by the Highland Ravens and immediately picked back up by the Styx Ferrymen. Wow, so now a couple back-to-back objectives potentially simply just taken away. Though the Ferrymen now will have to reset. The jellyfish gore on either side of the Dharmic Pillars, on the actual pillars themselves, are telling me this is some type of underwater jellyfish-style skin. One of these days we'll figure out exactly what it is. But I think good objective play there from both teams. Just show some presence, trying to catch each other asleep at the wheel.
We both have laptops. We both have the capability to just go to like Ganesh's wiki page
now I'm done talking,
open the skin. And so I can see already looking it up. I'm interested to see how the Ravens handle this. So ever since we got past like 3v3s, started approaching, you know, the 4v4s, this late game, almost full team fight portion of the game, it's been slowing down a little bit, right? Like, it hadn't been as adept, and now they have to be in a little bit of trouble. Adapting is to get out of there.
Had to use the beads into the Ragnarok. So much time in CC immunity, but GunTTeRR walks back through the Dharmic Pillars and nearly falls down, but won't. And again, these two teams send damage towards one another and are just narrowly able to get out alive. GunTTeRR has escaped death like 3 separate times this game. Unbelievable from the mid laner. And that's what you need on this Baba Yaga, the ability to just stay on the map, get the stacks built up thanks to your passive. Warlock staff already completed. Charon's coin a couple of stacks. So GunTTeRR just being available for his team has really helped out in the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, being able to have that damage still around is incredibly consistent for them. Good news is investment, again, Calvin's going to get this ult back incredibly fast, so we're not too worried about that one. Adapting having to use the beads and the Aegis and the Ragnarok all to disengage, though, that's not a good sign. That's never a good sign when you're playing Fenrir, and it's even worse in circumstances like this where you're trying to find someone to lock down. You don't get to burn any beads in the process, so it's not like you picked up GunTTeRR or StreakUp. You really didn't get the full utility of what a Fenrir could do there. And that's always been the kind of ups and downs of specifically like adapting. I think adapting plays incredibly well, and so you want to funnel kills through adapting, but when you look at some gods, and Fenrir might fall in this category, I think to a certain extent does, sometimes you expect them to have to die for those kills. Twig, I think, is a good example of a player that will die, but win his team the entire fight because his death brought something. I think adapting, especially in teams that we've seen in the past, people like to play through him for good reason, right? He's an incredibly skilled player, but in circumstances like that, you're investing both your relics and your ult, all of your offensive capabilities essentially, all into just get out and hopefully see another day. Works that time around, doesn't always grant that same like sanctuary to get away from there. So I think that there's something to be looked forward to, or to keep our eyes on, specifically in the jungle. Not just how many kills adapting can get and how much pressure he has, but whether or not those ults and those relics are getting used for more than just running away.
So for 30 seconds or so, adapting will be without beads and Aegis. A couple spectral armors picked up here, both ADCs going into that crit tree. So Pyromancer low and confirmed by the Highland Ravens, and not much pushback from the Styx Ferrymen. So I would say hybrid build from VaporishCoast. I don't know if one Transcendence makes for a hybrid build, but Transcendence into standard hunter build seems to be the mindset here for Coast.
And I like this. You know, you look at certain gods, Uller comes to mind, but AMC is very high up on that list of, man, I suck without mana, and I burn mana fast. So really, how can I keep this going? Because, you know, with AMC, you need the mana, not just for the bees and for your stinger, but your honey, which is very helpful in team fights, and more specifically, your hives. You know, they're not a heavy investment, but each ability without a Transcendence is going to take chunks and chunks and chunks of your mana cost. Whereas here, you're going to be a lot more comfortable, a lot more capable throughout the duration of fights. Hives then give you a little bit of HP 5, you get movement speed, you feel better attack speed off of those as well, so team fights feel better from that. Plus, you have all of your other abilities, and like you said, even though it's not necessarily as hybrid as it could be, things, you know, where you have like a hi-rez in there as well, and go towards that path, it's still great for you to have that extra power spike that Evolved Transcendence gives you. And then you get crit and then attack speed buffs. Like with your Hive and the other 2 items prior to that Silver Branch, this AMC is going to hit really hard with every single auto, and they're going to be able to chunk your prots with the ult. All of it, I think, just kind of synergizes really well with itself. And I think if Coast joins the fight and is allowed to just free fire, that's going to be curtains for the Ferryman.
Well, the Highland Ravens have been able to build up their gold lead just fine. After the Styx Ferrymen took that gold tier, he dropped down to about 1,800, right back up to about 3,500. So the Ravens have regained the lead that they had just a few moments ago. Don't want to lose it, though, by getting picked out, especially if you're Calvin. His build has continued on. Spirit Robe been very popular for these supports. So utility mindset from Rottwen between the Thebes and the Shoguns. Calvin, maybe some utility with the Chronos Pendant, as we have tirelessly outlined. The Spirit Robe, good to keep this Ganesha on the map a little bit longer. Fluorescent Friend Ganesh, by the way, Gore. And I guess the theme is just that he is a like an underwater just friend to all sea life. It's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from the artwork here. I think the scepter, the bowl-looking thing in his left hand is a bowl of like grapes, and then on the other side it is a staff of like kelp that all the sea friends come around and eat from his hand. So he is attracting in the sea life.
Can sea life eat grapes? I guess so.
The sea turtle in the splash art can.
Okay.
So
Dogs cannot eat grapes.
They can't. Something about the skin on the grapes, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of look it up. There's a lot of stuff dogs can't eat.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks.
Yeah, difficult. You know, you just want to
They're
toss
bad
them.
with onions.
Yeah, horrible with onions. Even like sauce, not like just the onion, like the sauce if it's been made with onions.
Yeah,
is
anything
not
with
great.
onions in it.
All right, Primal
powder.
Fury gets taken low. Calvin drops the Dharmic Pillars, hoping to beckon in a couple Styx Ferrymen. Calvin will dash out. BeAzrael in on the chase, unable to finish off the kill in the backline, adapting left alone, and the
kill.
Styx Ferrymen able to snag their first kill of the game here in 24 minutes, and the Highland Ravens hitting the eject button, and out they go. Looks like Chxnnahh maybe soon to fall. Damage mitigation on the Raven feels nice, but you can only mitigate so much. Another kill drops. Styx Ferrymen at 2.
And that's just such a good set of kills. We also get to see something that, goes perfectly in line. AMC is going to do a lot unless he's not able to free fire. What does Azrael do? Cool. Sit on him. Make sure that he can't chase down the 2 carries and force them out of the fight. But now, I mean, with the Ganesha there, I felt like it could have maybe been something had Rottwen not been doing such a stellar job of zoning out. But that's just a good fight for the Ferryman. 2 kills. They match the amount that the Ravens had picked up in 25 minutes, and they get them on, I think, high-priority targets. Adapting getting killed off is a really big deal, plus you burn the beads in the Aegis, so that makes it even easier to try and find it the next time around during, like, a, let's say, FG fight sometime in the next 5 minutes or so. But you showcase the strengths and the weaknesses of Raven. I mean, you had highlighted it perfectly. Damage mitigation feels great, but it doesn't last forever, and there's a certain point where, no matter how much you're mitigating, you're still going to end up dying. And unfortunately for Chxnnah, he hits that point, right? The ult is going to give you a good chunk. You've got a lot from the Oni Hunter's Garb in the middle there, but if it doesn't bring you much, and I think a lot of this is actually going to be maybe enabled more so by the mask here in a second, you're going to have to be a little more careful than that.
Wow, the Ferrymen. We get the Pyromancer as well. This game has completely shifted over the last couple of minutes. A 3,500 gold lead becomes nothing. The Highland Ravens now backpedaling, hoping their composition can just stand up here later on in the game. Going to be difficult when GunTTeRR on the Baba Yaga has reached scale point. Fully stacked Charon's coins, Soul Reaver, Divine Ruin, all of it there. Warlock Staff, I'm sorry I left you out. I'll include your name there as well. Lots of damage starting to roll through this mid lane. Haven't seen much from Angry yet in the way of kills since the first kill dropped probably 15 or so minutes ago. Gonna be scaling up nicely on this Huang though as well. Love these types of moments where you can just send out some poke damage. So Gore, as you start to scale up later in this game, this is where eyes turn to the carries.
And honestly, I think they've got a good spot to be in, especially if they can take out Angry.
Yeah, all eyes on the carries. VaporishCoast and Angry jumped on by BeAzrael, but Coast doesn't die. That is unbelievable. And VaporishCoast dancing around iceice. You gotta kill him. Nearly Coast turns that around as well. Calvin, a real good look. Maybe a kill onto iceice, who blinks over the wall. And now it's the Nemesis who's going to be able to escape unless Chxnnah somehow closes the gap. Blink forward, and iceice makes the magic play. Not VaporishCoast. And a 2-for-1 trade for the Ferryman.
And that was there was a little split second there. Adapting is in a fight with StreakUp, is in combat. Turns to look where the Nemesis is running through because that's where the callouts are coming from the team. Takes a hit from behind, dies off right there. Maybe a distraction, maybe the play. Either way, the Ferrymen feel so much better. I mean, just their team fight has been solid. They force Angry and Coast out immensely. In fact, if Coast isn't the player that Coast is, if that's literally any other hunter in Europe other than Coast, it's just a death. It is not a turnaround. There's no big fight. There's no crazy damage. Azrael probably does still end up dying, but not because of Coast or because of the hunter. It is just because of who Coast is and how well he plays that is as close as it is.
Chxnnah Takes a bit of damage here around the Fire Giant. So this game, in a way we thought it would, Gore, really slowed down after a couple of kills dropped early. The Ravens playing well around objectives, but the Styx Ferrymen never let this game get out of reach. And now we go into Fire Giant time with this game effectively even for both of these squads. So you do start to look at where some of the builds start to lie, and that being the big difference maker here, Gore. Big damage spikes continue to get hit, though, for adapting. We mentioned the dominance and the hi-rez and the transcendence earlier on. Now a Heartseeker and Bumba's Hammer upgraded. So I still think in that last fight you didn't see the full capacity of adapting. Gotta find a target. Gotta get some beads burnt. iceice a good target for the next 25 or so seconds. GunTTeRR and StreakUp gonna be a bit more difficult for adapting to lock down.
Yeah, honestly, even still trying to lock down iceice might not work out well. There's BeAzrael going in.
Again, BeAzrael jumps in, and again, BeAzrael will have to backpedal, but though Cxnnahh will as well. A stun into the knockup, but a Raven tough to kill, and VaporishCoast reminds Rottwen of why Styx Ferrymen will lose their support first.
I mean, there's the exact balancing point of where the Ravens can win versus where the Ferrymen win. Last fight around that mid, dive deep, you get rid of the carries immediately, you make Coast feel uncomfortable, and then kill off Coast and force Angry to fall back. This time, Angry and Coast were still in the green, still incredibly healthy, maybe took one bit of damage from a stray ability, untouched virtually through that one. Didn't have to use either of their relics, and their damage gets to ring a lot closer to true.
Uh-oh, Angry gets chunked out a bit, but so does VaporishCoast. BeAzrael just being obnoxious around this Fire Giant. Calvin uses Dharmic Pillars. BeAzrael just shredded through the Stinger on the backside as well. iceice looking for Coast. Coast has Aegis. Adapting has Leap. And a nice silence out from GunTTeRR. May have just saved iceice's life, but Cxnnahh with Mystic Rush says no way. And the Styx Ferrymen now lose a couple, and the Fire Giant stands for the Ravens.
They burn StreakUp's ult as well, so it opens up a lot of opportunities. Look at the damage that is ringing true. The 420 hits there for VaporishCoast. Already feels great. You had mentioned it, you know, burns the Aegis, still has the beats, still feels comfortable firing from the back line. Angry takes a little bit of damage at the forefront of that fight, but the turnaround from the Ravens was necessary. I mean, to the point where a lot of these last, grouping up for the last 10 minutes until the last two, nothing about their team fight felt good. Nothing about it was going their way. You're talking 2 lost Furies, you're talking about 2 lost Pyromancers, but finally they shape up around the FG, plus they get it enhanced. This is a really good spot to be in for this team.
Yeah, and Cxnnah's arrived, right? If the rest of the build wasn't scary enough on this Raven, Lono's Mask just to end it all up. And Raven next to unkillable at this point, outside of just a complete onslaught of damage from the rest of the Styx Ferrymen. Really good resilience score, honestly, from both teams this game. I think the Styx Ferrymen, as we mentioned earlier, great at slowing the game down, not letting it get out of control, taking the objectives as they may. And the Highland Ravens, on the flip side, after this game, dipped down a bit, able to realize they also have a nice composition. They can also look for picks and big openings. And I love the way that they utilize their objective shred. So the Styx Ferrymen, Gore, they're going to have to watch at least 4 towers go down on this Fire Giant push. Tier 1's in mid and left. Tier 2's also in mid and left. Maybe just eyeing how their Phoenix defense looks.
At this point, eyeing the defense is, once again, same problems I had as before. Lack of hard CC that is going to be immediately available for you. BeAzrael has to commit the ult. BeAzrael has been going deep and getting burned pretty hard for it. With the Spectral online, should be a little better this time around if you dive into specifically in front of Coast. Not crazy comfortable though. Same thing, iceice, again, very, I guess, decent in some of those range. I mean, slice and dice, that cone is pretty wide, so it feels nice, but the area where you're actually getting the amount of damage that you want done is nowhere near as much. So you're looking at mostly Baba Yaga for denial of space. And while those abilities can do a lot, it's not really where you want to bank on it. I feel like this is a good spot for the Ravens to just walk in and knock down a couple of Phoenixes.
Yeah, keep eyes on mid. It's not going to be exciting, but Cxnnah's going to not take much and deal a lot. So half HP off the Phoenix. And the Phoenix was wailing away on Cxnnah for a decent amount of time there. Took a while to get through that shield. And Cxnnah with a minion wave is going to be able to walk back in, do the same thing. So less than riveting smite, but important smite and shows you just what Robin with this style of build is able to do. Ignore Phoenixes with how strong they are. And as long as he doesn't deal damage to Azrael by accident, seems like he might have, Phoenix should be under a bit of threat, and Chxnnah simply walks in, and a couple auto attacks away from taking the mid lane Phoenix. That really simplifies this game for the Ravens.
Not only that, but the length of which you're able to survive in that at a decent health bar is really highlighting the fact that you can keep a minion wave in there for so long without having to let them tank it.
Now the Styx Ferrymen want to fight, though. Adapting from around the wall, pulls Azrael into the Lion's Den, and VaporishCoast onto the killing spree as the Bellona takes a fall. Rottwen's got to jump out left side. Phoenix still up, but Chxnnah was able to tank up mid on his own. Now he's got the rest of his squad, just trying to wait out the damage from GunTTeRR, which is immense.
Yeah, at this point, it is the patience game that is going to end up happening. I think Chxnnah is even going to back and teleport back in.
Yeah, why not?
And so, yeah, this is going to be not only a full heal, but then you also get some upgrades as well. So it makes things even more powerful for your squad.
Chxnnah blinks over the wall and fully healed up from base. Left side Phoenix crumbles.
Oh my god.
StreakUp nearly does as well. The Highland Ravens happy with their prize. And right side Phoenix went down. When did that happen? I am completely blind to that.
That was like the instant fire giant went down.
Oh,
I think they
started
ran
looking
over
at builds and stuff. Okay,
yeah.
I totally ignored that happening. All right, all three Phoenixes are down.
Yeah, that has to be.
I mean, it's about to respawn, so I guess it must be. Yeah, right, and Fire Giant's about to fall off. So about the same amount of time on that. That was so long ago, Gore. I forgot it even happened.
Admittedly, they did it very quickly with very little clapback. So it was the most lame Phoenix in the world.
I appreciate you bailing me out of this one. And I'll take every bit of that bailout. Adapting, oh no! Thinks it's just iceice. And in fact, it's everyone else from the Styx Ferrymen. And now Adapting is dead for about 30 seconds while that Fire Giant will be up. You might just need to rush it if you're the Styx Ferrymen.
Yeah, honestly, you've got a big numbers advantage. That's a huge portion of being able to pick apart the Ferryman's team, or sorry, the Ravens team, is getting rid of Adapting. So now you have someone who's a little less worried. Both your carries don't have beats. They don't have to stress about that for another 30 seconds right now.
Yeah, can Chxnnah delay out this Fire Giant, though? Does not have teleport for 40 seconds. Transformation out of Rottwen. This is the chance for the Ferryman to come back into this game. iceice with Bubble has found the backline. VaporishCoast has Aegis, withstands a lot of the damage and sends some towards iceice as well. Chxnnah doing his best, but his best is not enough against 4. VaporishCoast being run down, and it looks like we'll be able to escape. Adapting up in 5, but now 55 seconds on the death timer for the Robin.
Yeah, Angry and Calvin still available and still around, though. No ults to their name, Adapting back, but you're going to have to rush to this. The other two have to do a lot to try and delay it.
Keep your eyes on Dharmic Pillar's cooldown. I don't think it's going to be back in time. Fire Giant melting through. Still needed 10 or so seconds. An enhanced Fire Giant to the Styx Ferryman, +1 onto Calvin. And talk about resiliency. The Styx Ferryman watch all 3 Phoenixes go down, find a pick onto Adapting, and flip the script on this game. And it happens again to Adapting, walks forward, and gets deleted.
I mean, it's, again, small amounts of CC, but apparently that's all you need right now. With no beads available, Adapting, unfortunately, just walks up, walks in, and dies. And that's with 2 in a row. And the other death timers, I mean, this is the best spot the Ferrymen have been in all game. And that's including the fact that they had a 7K, trudge through the mud back to at least an even game state. Even now, gold isn't in their favor fully. But look at that dive and look how hard they pulled back. 2 times in a row, it doesn't normally get to happen. In a SMITE game, you usually lose if you can't do anything when you pulled it back the first time. The downside right now is the map state. There's still 4 towers standing for the Ravens. They're about to be full power. You have an enhanced Fire Giant. That Tier 1 is virtually useless. I don't want to see the Ravens even try to defend it. Tier 2's 38 minutes into the game. If StreakUp's over there, just let it die. It's not going to be worth your time. But unfortunately, that does mean there's some good gold on the map for the Ferrymen to pull back in their favor. And then it comes down to the same conversation we were just having, but in reverse, right? What is the Ravens' defense going to look like? I think Angry and Coast both do a little bit better job than what you're going to see from GunTTeRR and StreakUp in terms of defense. I think that Adapting is very adept at this as well. And so I feel a little better for the Ravens defense than I do for the Ferrymen, but I think the engage is still kind of frightening, I think, for the Ferrymen. You know, being able to let Bellona dive in, maybe not quite as well as the Rottwen, but still somewhat well, does mean they have ample opportunity to look for some fights.
I'll tell you when the Ravens' defense looked bad to her. It was up against the Cincinnati Bengals when Joe Burrow threw for 525 passing yards. That was about the worst that the Ravens' defense looked last year. Who Dey, go Bengals, obligatory shout-out. We'll see if the Styx Ferrymen...
After spending a week with my mother-in-law, almost at, like, not every hour, but like every 2 hours, you'd get a go Bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, like guaranteed.
Bills and Bengals are bros with one another.
Not even in the season right now.
No.
Not even in preseason.
No, you're right. But it was on the... Unfortunately for fans of the SEC Highland Ravens, when we take out the Highland, all I can think of is just, especially like Ravens defense. I don't know. It's just like an NFL saying to me, and
that's a very NFL saying.
It just sticks out in my head. So I apologize.
That might be, I like that phrase even more now because it transcends SEC.
Transcendence, sold by the way by VaporishCoast, picked up is a dominance now for some extra power spikes at the end of this game. And I don't think the Highland Ravens score assumed they would be in this type of position with the way that first Fire Giant went. And the base now almost fully healed up. Phoenix is only going to sustain back so much, but the Titan not under any sort of stress on the Styx Ferrymen side of the map. I wonder if BeAzrael is going to be able to tank up the Phoenixes in the same way that Chxnnahh was able to, but won't take the attempt. Instead, you got a jungle 1v1 in mid.
This is a good example, in my mind, of how you can tell a Fire Giant wasn't... So, I don't want to say wasn't earned, because that's not the right way to word it, because it was absolutely earned, but it was earned through a pick and not through an all-out fight.
Right.
Because this is a team with an EFG, 20 seconds left. They need to be putting on the pressure, and they can't get under the Phoenix because their actual 5-on-5 fight has not been successful so far against the Ravens. The time they won was when Adapting was dead and everybody had to make a play to try and delay the Fire Giant. It didn't work out for them, and the power went over towards the Ferryman, but they need another pick like that if they want them to take something big.
Yeah, you're not trying to pick Chxnnahh, though. Chxnnahh somehow healed through this initiation. Rottwen stunned, and the Dharmic Pillars making him take the long way around. Stinger flies back to the ground for VaporishCoast. Adapting jumps up and over. Doesn't find a stun target, but does find a Ragnarok target. Ultimate through from GunTTeRR to delay out the fight. Adapting has got to brutalize and leap away. And suddenly Calvin, the one left running. Styx Ferrymen and Highland Ravens going all up and down the right side of this map. But all 10 players remain alive.
I mean, that is a huge deal to be able to fight the Ferryman. Look, yes, Fire Giant wears off in that fight, but that starts with an EFG. I mean, they still have it around their belt, and it's still looking good for them. And there's a lot of utility that gets thrown out of there, but again, Dave, that's when it comes back to these ultimate cooldowns, right? You're looking angry, almost has theirs back. Chxnnahh almost has theirs back. Calvin, Coast already have theirs back. And so you're feeling really good about that, whereas you're still half-timer on the Nemesis, you're half-timer on GunTTeRR, you're half-timer on Rottwen. A lot of the pressure that you could maybe get from the Ferryman has disappeared, and now that Bellona's used hers alone, that should be either an easy fight or an easy push back for the Ravens.
You lose the Eagles rally. Those Sting are used by VaporishCoast as well.
Yeah, that's going to be lost.
So health shred, a bit limited. Prot shred, rather. I guess then through that health shred, both more limited than they might otherwise be. Chxnnahh takes a stun from Rottwen, but Rottwen takes a heap of damage for his troubles. And 42 minutes of game time. It feels like it's all really boiled down to just this one moment. Yes, 8,000 gold in the leader, the Styx Ferryman, but does not matter when the builds are fully completed. Just looking at potions, things like that. Teleport out from Chxnnahh. You'd love to be able to get aggressive in the next couple of seconds. That's why Chxnnahh walking forward. Finds a target. Doesn't find much else. BeAzrael silence. Takes a little bit of poke damage. Calvin's got to dash away. And it looks like the tug of war and the dance will begin.
This is where things can actually pay off. If the Ravens can slow roll this at the pace that they are, you're going to get Beads and Aegis back. Beads for both Angry and Coast, but Aegis back there for Coast as well. And so that gives them a lot more flexibility in their fight and their potential to maybe dive deeper. They got to play carefully around this FG because at this point, you know, last time you had 4 towers standing. If you lose the fight, you don't lose much else. Now you lose Calvin.
Uh-oh, Calvin didn't even get the Dharmic Pillars off, and the Ferryman pressed down on the gas. And it's high-octane fuel that the Ferrymen are playing with now. 2 down, and the Ravens dual lane gone. Their mid laner follows as well. Chxnnah will be run down, and Adapting will have to make the miracle play. And I don't think that miracle's going to arrive. The Styx Ferrymen bought their time and grab a win in game 1.
Yeah, this is going to be a nice, smooth walk forward, a smooth burn down through the Phoenix. Not even needing the Fire Giant, so it's going to take a little longer. But again, a lot of that comes down from exactly what we just saw. And it is not this crazy 5-on-5, we just team fight better than you. Although I guess you could maybe slice it in that way if you want to look at it, but it's a single pick. And that single pick is then able to turn into a lot more. Earlier, it was Adapting, and then from Adapting, it goes into Chxnnah, and then from Chxnnah, it goes into Calvin, and Calvin into Coast, and so on and so forth. This time around, it's Calvin first, and then it's just cool. Domino, domino, domino. Knock you down as quickly as we can. We don't need the objective this time around. They don't need to match that gold. And so it makes things a lot easier for them to search forward.
That's got to be aggravating for the Ravens.
Yes.
I don't think the Ravens in the late game felt like they got a real chance to actually team fight. To your point, Core, I think there was a pick dropping before the fight.
They got a big Fire Giant from
right, and then Adapting overextends, and that flips the game around, and then Adapting overextends again, and that keeps the flip going. Styx Ferrymen, again, I admire their resilience in this game, because once the first enhanced Fire Giant goes down to the Ravens, just over the 30-minute mark, all 3 Phoenixes are down. You don't often see this, a game where all 3 Phoenixes die, and that team ends up winning the game. Styx Ferrymen able to weather the storm and take a win here in game number 1. Ravens, time to bounce back. Game 2 coming up next. Yeah, Ganesh running towards the statue, hoping for some blessings. That's what the Ravens needed here in game number 1 as the Styx Ferrymen turn the game around and in just over 40 minutes are able to grab the win in game number 1 over the Highland Ravens. Now, if you will, rewind with me a bit. The Highland Ravens leading this game, 30 minutes. They knocked down all 3 Phoenixes, but a couple of individual fumbles score maybe turn this game around.
Yeah.
And then great continued team fighting, continued map presence from the Styx Ferrymen end up handing them the win.
Sometimes all it takes is a little slip up. And, you have a lead. You've, like you said, 3 Phoenixes down. Your team's doing well. They've been winning team fights, or at least the only big team fight 5-on-5 we got to see. They take successfully. And then it all falls apart. And it all falls apart. Pretty much right here, actually. Adapting ends up going down. I think this was the huge turnaround for him. So you're 24 minutes in. You are 3,000, 4,000 gold down, I think, prior to that. You get 2 Furies uninterrupted. I believe, I want to say 2 Pyros uninterrupted. A couple of fights where you get a lot of neutral camps and neutral objectives. That brought the gold back to even. Then, that's where things turned around.
Oh, my God. That was it right there.
Yeah, that was the...
So look at his death time. He's dead for a minute.
What a devastating kill to have happen.
He was dead for a minute. Fire Giant was up 30 seconds later. And that gave the Ravens free look at that first Fire Giant, and they knocked down some towers, knocked down some Phoenixes. And look, that the difference between Coast on a Rom or a Chernobog or a Heimdall and Coast on an AMC Gore maybe isn't so much just in the way that the Hunter functions, whether it's sting or ability-based damage. It's safety. I mean, think about a Heimdall, how safe you would have been under a situation like that. A Rom can go to the sky. A Chernobog can do the same. And so AMC just jump onable. And if Coast's actives were down, which they were throughout that game, he's able to get punished.
That should be a stat we keep. Jump on ability. For AMC, pretty high jump on ability, but like it's a risky jump on ability, right? Like,
under when we do the God picks underneath, it says like team benefits or whatever. Jump onable is one of the one of the things.
Pros, cons. Jump onable.
Pros, burst damage, and
pros, he'll beat you down into the ground like it's nothing, unless you jump on him real good.
Yeah, and that was a last pick AMC as well.
Yeah.
So that was
he saw most of what he was going up against.
Saw everything that Coast was going up against. Without harping too much on the AMC, did potentially hurt the Ravens in the long run here. But the Ravens down but not out. Picks and bans for game number 2 could tell us a different story as the Ravens find themselves in first pick yet again. Styx Ferrymen, of course, will get to answer back with a couple. After a game like that, though, Gore, I so often say this. It's so closely knit. That's got to feel like a game if you're the Ravens that like an individual mistake or two ends up making a difference down the stretch. Was wondering if they feel like they have now gods they need to adapt, they need to take away from the Ferryman, and Nemesis ends up being the answer.
Yeah, honestly, I like it, again, for being able to help prot shred, being able to help survivability. I think if you're a jungler, like adapting, and you're playing Fenrir, and your goal is to survive your leap in, then having someone on the other team that kills you faster, allows the team to kill you faster. I mean, you're jumping into 4 people late game. If you're hit with a Nemesis ult, you're dead. You're shredded.
Yeah,
that's enough. And that's a lot of what happened. You jump in, you either see Beads, Aegis ult burned and adapting, turning tail, and running with barely any health left. So you have to back and then run back to the fight, or just straight up killed out. And so I think that's a good change to try and alleviate some of that pressure that the Ravens were able to turn around on.
I like this adaptation from the Ravens. Grabbed themselves the Chernobog. Maybe could have waited a bit further on in the draft, but that shows you the Ravens are they hold the Chernobog higher than the other option. Still could have picked a Hunter in the top 3. Chernobog may have gotten taken away here by the Ferryman. Jing still available. Heimdall still available for Coast. But Chernobog just that important to this Highland Ravens squad. Huang and Fafnir, though, very strong pieces of utility that the Styx Ferrymen had in game number 1. And Gore, they're sticking with it. Again, I don't want to hang too much on Coast. Not him as a player, but that pick specifically. I wonder if the Ravens feel like if they just had a slightly more safe Hunter, that game looks a lot different.
It feels like, I mean, you had mentioned the Heimdall, Chernobog. I think it had been banned, but like looking at the Heimdall
banned, yep.
prior to when it was banned, if you're imagining, Bellona or Nemesis, anybody, Fafnir jumping in on that, Heimdall just slams you out of the park for a little while, and not only is he safe, and you're probably honestly setting your team up for success afterwards. So I think there were a lot of opportunities that could have been, like you said, maybe saved and salvaged. But they didn't get to live in that world. Instead, they had a really hard hitter. I think we did really well when they were doing those team fights. But because of that, it felt like just a perpetual stagger that the Styx had managed to apply to the Ravens there. It just made it too difficult to overcome and fight back the way that they wanted to. Meanwhile, Jing on the other side, incredibly safe. What was it, like 7-0, I think, at the very end of that?
Yeah.
Like an insanely good slash line, really good damage. The Jing did exactly what you would have wanted in that game.
Let me zoom out with you for a second, Gore.
Okay.
Would you rather be a Highland Raven or a Styx Ferryman?
Well, as far as I know, personally, like in actual mythology, there's only actually one.
All right, would you rather be the Styx Ferryman?
Then yeah, that guy's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He gets gold.
You know what? I bet he hangs out with
drachmas.
Ravens.
He gets drachmas, 2 per, to get on the boat to get down the river Styx.
Oh, in mythology?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet he also has
know
a
what his
raven
name
as a
is?
pet that chills out on his. Yeah, please.
His name's Charon. And guess what Charon's coin is
That's
based
right,
on?
it's because he flips. That's right.
And
I remember.
now we're full.
And now we're full
And you know
circle.
how I know that? Percy Jackson and the Olympians, baby.
I remember because I don't remember the lore behind it, but I remember the balance in the pitch meeting when we were discussing the potential of Charon's coin and all those sorts of things. I remember you got really excited about that
Because
and talked about the lore behind it.
it's real neat.
So you always learn something new when Gore is on the cast, and so I appreciate you for it, Gore. Let's catch back up, though, with picks and bans. Geb and Merlin end up the draft here for the Highland Ravens. So some changes. No longer the Fenrir going to get a Hun Batz for adapting. That is a story pick for adapting. Geb plus Merlin. Geb going to be great at cleansing out some of the CC that the Ferrymen are hoping to apply. And then Merlin, great late game scaling, team-wide shred damage. And so I think the Ravens have a good, consistent draft here, Gore. A very top-to-bottom standard SMITE draft.
And you look at this team, and you know what kind of game they're playing, where their fights, you can see in totality, just from the draft, where their initiation is going to be. It's in the Geb, it's in the Hun Batz, it's in the Rottwen. Who their hard hitters are. You've got burn from Merlin, heavy hits, and autos from the Chernobog. It is very standard, and it is exactly pretty much to the T of what you expect to see out of a SMITE game.
And so you're hoping, if you're the Ravens, that standard equals consistency, and consistency equals victory here in Game 2. Otherwise, the Styx Ferrymen will take the set and improve themselves to 2-2 in the standings and drop the Ravens to also 2-2 as Dolson, Gore, and Doug, of course. And Doug, Gore, every time you and I cast, I feel like Doug always has a more difficult job at hand because oftentimes you and I don't just talk about SMITE. We're talking about the Ganesha skins. We're talking about weird little things we notice on the map. And so Doug ends up being the MVP of sets that you and I, or Myth and I, end up casting. So I appreciate you, Doug.
I'm noticing a common theme in those, the 2 pairings that you listed.
Doug, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Me. Yeah, unlucky.
Something with me and you and Myth and you.
You know what I just realized? And I promise I'll get back on track immediately. Nice little 1v1 over in solo lane. Kana, all right, yeah, okay. I think we're just poking at one another and we'll back off. You know what I noticed is the fluorescent friend Ganesh.
Yeah.
A skin based off of a big shiny thing attracting fish around it. I was just a fish in game 1. I was attracted to my eyes were just pulled in to fluorescent friend Ganesh.
Just like the song from Moana.
Yeah, you're gonna have to help me out there.
Oh, shiny? There's a whole point where he says
the big
that
crab
fish
guy
are so dumb because they're attracted to shiny things.
Yeah, well, that was me. I was a big, dumb fish in game number 1. And I'm still caught on it.
This is whether it's a social team or if Jordan wants to do it, whoever wants to, just Dave's face on just a big old fish would be funny to me.
Yeah, it could be humorous. As long as the fish that I'm on is
Well, because
cool,
you got a little bit of the mustache going right now, so that
Like
with
a
on a
catfish?
catfish
Yeah.
with the whiskers coming out would be pretty funny.
Fair enough, Gore. All right, you're teeing it up. Somebody's got free content here. Let's talk a bit about the game.
Let's talk about SMITE.
Look, we have to, because if the pace is similar to game 1, we got 2 kills in 20, 30 minutes or so, which is okay. That's just the pace of game that these 2 teams tend to play. And again, some scaling to be had for both of these squads, and so no real need to force too much early on and get the ball rolling. That said, a bit unique of a matchup in the jungle here, Gore. Got adapting, of course, on the Batz, and then iceice on the Bastet. As far as Bastet just in general goes, much less iceice playing that pick. Not something we often see.
Yeah, I think this is something that, first off, I'm trying to remember the last time I saw Bastet in the jungle and not in solo lane. I guess it's been a little more common this year to have it be like half and half, or maybe like 70-30. It's not uncommon to see in the jungle. A lot of it does come down to how well and consistently you hit your ults, right? Late game, it is going to be, if that little wisp is thrown out there, will you grab them and have that Sentinel of Bast bring them back in? And, if you look at it, in some aspects it's better Fenrir ult, in some aspects it's worse than Fenrir ult, but it accomplishes the same kind of target, right? Brings someone back into the team and can be very well accomplished in the middle of a gank if done properly.
Calvin steals away the purple buff. Something about it being Geb to steal it away has got to be a little extra annoying for the Styx Ferrymen duo lane. Just rolls in, sends out the rolling knock-up, and ends up stealing your purple buff away. Chxnnah's low here. Dazzling Offensive caught onto the Ravana, and just enough mana to get the Mystic Rush out. So BeAzrael able to exert a bit of pressure over in solo lane. Gore looks like going to stick with the Golden Blade start, which has, of course, been popular for junglers. But maybe will help out Azrael in farming up in this lane and getting some pressure.
Yeah, I mean, up against the Ravana, I think he's got slightly better clear just by merits of what his abilities and how wide his abilities are. Although, Amaterasu, you get 2-3 levels in the mirror.
Yeah.
Feels like it should be able to keep up. So that's maybe something that I'm excited to watch this. Again, I think that Golden Blade, outside of clear, like just the numbers on this item are incredibly good because move speed, you're going to get attack speed on there as well. And the attack speed synergizes so well with Amaterasu and specifically on her passive. And when there's a guy on the other side, like, the Raven, who's going to have a lot of damage mitigations later on, this, I think, helps open up the potential to kill this Raven off a lot easier.
Yeah, it could be. Though, when you get the Soul Eater this early, especially when you get it stacked, it just does so much for you in this lane. Such a nice stat stick item. Yeah, plus 10% pen, lifesteal, the CDR. I mean, that is a fantastic item. So early on, gives Chxnnah a nice trade advantage maybe over BeAzrael. Cataclysm onto Rottwen, who jumped in. Rottwen chose this fight just to stop the back. And it looks like Rottwen will end up being okay. So you have seen some poking and prodding going both ways here, Gore, but neither jungler has made their presence known just yet. Could be an opportunity for iceice, that said. Remember, game one, both junglers with beads. Adapting, sticking with the beads, but Blink for iceice maybe lends your mind to iceice getting a bit more aggressive.
I think this is going to be a fun... So you know how you had mentioned it, 2 kills last time? Yeah, you're looking at what I just saw. I'm going to let you have that one because I want to talk about this, which is just that we had 2 kills in, 25 minutes or however many? And realistically, outside of this solo lane, I don't know that I see a lot of that happening. I mean, Huang's going to be very safe. Angry should be pretty safe. You've got a Geb shield available for you on a Chernobog as well. Like, a lot of survivability throughout most of the Ravens and the Ferrymen. And so I think we're going to end up in a position where this one, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we're hitting the same portion where we got to the 4th kill last game in that 24-minute mark. And instead, that's where we're starting to see, our first bloods 16 minutes in or something like that here.
Yeah, it could absolutely be the pacing. Gore and I both individually chuckling because production sent a... Is this a thing? Dolly Mini? Is that a...
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Have you not seen it? There's a lot of memes.
No, I haven't seen it before. AI generated me as a fish, so appreciate you, production.
Honestly, if you go into it, the bottom middle one looks pretty good. Like that is like that would be you as a fish.
Yeah, but the top left one might actually be this alienating 100% of our viewers who have no idea what I'm talking about.
No one can see it. The middle one's definitely the weirdest, and the bottom right does not look like you at all. But the bottom middle is a fish that, if you and a fish were thrown into a fusion thing and you had to come out as only a fish,
right,
that's what it would look like.
Right, he's got a little
He's got the hair.
Little blonde hair swoop thing up top. We'll be able to return to this in a moment. We'll help you guys out.
You'll get to see
visually in a minute, I'm sure.
We'll picture in picture. The game will go smaller. We'll have a nice big.
Yeah, clearly priorities. Clearly priorities straight. Wow, okay, we do have something to talk about here, Gore, in the first couple minutes of this game. Rod of Tahuti first for Angry. And so, while that may not end up turning into anything, 120 magical power and 10% pen early. Won't help out Kana. Mr. Grush will have to do that, but got some nice damage from Angry over in mid.
Yeah, I think that's the big one, right? You're looking at something that burns incredibly well in a Merlin.
Oh, there it is, bottom
and that
right.
Rod of Tahuti really helps that one out. Yeah, what I'm saying is, bottom middle does look a lot like what Dave would be. Like that is a Dolson fish.
Are you talking about the swoop, the hair swoop?
Yeah, the one. Yeah, that's the swoop, but like also like it's got like a thing around the mouth that looks a lot like the facial hair when you haven't shaved in a while.
Right. Well, I thought we had some action. We did, but it was just a dash out from Azrael as a Fear No Evil from adapting made the soul laner uncomfortable. Thanks. You guys
Look,
can
all
tell
I'm
when I
saying
haven't
is
shaved
how
for a
many
while.
other esports are you going to get to tune into where they get to talk about the casters of fish, all right? Smite's got something that no one else has, baby.
For better or worse, none.
Yeah, exactly.
For better or worse,
This
none.
is the kind of premium content you can only get here for. You know what? This is the kind of premium content you use those Prime Gaming subs for.
That's right.
Right here on twitch.tv/SmiteGame.
That's right. Send it in now. I won't shout you out, but I'll appreciate you, and that's worth something. As the Styx Ferrymen core, they are able to roll about 1,000 gold ahead just through nature of slow farming up this game. Admire the tenacity, the thoughtfulness of adapting to see if you can get an advantage over for your Robin, but looks like won't be there. If you're no evil, a decent cooldown on that,
Yeah.
so you're spending it over in solo. And you're really limiting your gank potential for the next couple of minutes. Though iceice not feeling that way about the left side of the map. Has eyes, maybe for Coast. Both ultimates spent though on the right side of the map. And nothing will end up happening there. Is iceice gonna get aggressive on a Coast here? I'm not sure the Bastet got spotted out over by the purple buff. And on and off the wall goes Coast. It looks like a purple buff steal for the Styx Ferrymen. Even the action isn't all that action. He's just able to just disengage.
And you know, I actually was just thinking about this. So not only is it a long cooldown for Fear No Evil, maybe we'll have to hold that thought with Angry now. He should be able to get out of there. It just dodges the dragon there from the Huang. Look at the team for the Ferrymen. And look at how difficult any play adapting is going to make. Right now, Azrael might just be damn near the only person, like, has beads, has an ult that's CC immune. So if you use Fear No Evil over there, not going to connect to very easily. You've got some CC immunity in the kit for the Bastet, but also, oh, actually not the beads yet. So maybe the beads eventually, but a good leap from a Bastet. It's pretty televised when a Hunbatz is going to ult. So you can distance yourself and kind of get away from that one. So that gives you a small advantage there. Later on, I expect the beads as well. GunTTeRR has beads and Huang's 3, so both of those are going to get you out of the Fear No Evil pretty well. Rottwen has a leap, and while, again, no beads, maybe isn't as worried about it being tankier than the rest of the team, and then Jing has beads plus ult that can all dodge it. I don't know that adapting has an easy target here. I don't think there's anyone that is going to be a consistent Fear No Evil target. If anything, you're hoping to burn a lot of that utility. And granted, I just named off a lot of things, but you're going to burn some of that for either Calvin to come in with a massive ult or maybe Coast to be able to throw their ult out and help get slows down on the enemy team. Something to help turn team fights around, because otherwise, I don't know how much I like the late game team fights for the Ravens. I think they've got damage there. I think some decent CC, but I think the survivability of the Ferryman and their capabilities to clap back, especially with a admittedly still small but somewhat gold lead in their favor going towards this mid-game, then eventually late-game portion, I'm leaning a little more towards the Chaos team here.
Yeah, it could be. Is the potential of the Styx Ferryman squad, I don't think, represented by the 1 and 2 win-loss start to this phase. As ultimates traded by both of the junglers, a fight looming over the purple buff, which is confirmed by the Highland Ravens. Cataclysm through onto Rottwen, but Fafnir able just to jump out, up and over. Reinitiation from adapting, Rottwen transforming, and now adapting. Calvin angry, might have to run, but no, it's Rottwen who should have run. GunTTeRR immediately trades out the kill. First blood to the Ravens, but answered by the Styx Ferrymen mid laner. And so we see a burst of action, Gore. 1 kill drops per side, and we'll disengage.
First blood bounty, though, is going to be comfortable going on to Coast. I think that's a little bit of gold that is going to be back in their favor. Ultimately, it just means things are a little closer than they were 2 minutes ago, right? But blow for blow, you lose jungler for support might also be the other massive, massive change in that. And I think that's a huge deal. Rottwen does exactly what Rottwen should do there. Maybe re-engaging as deep as they did isn't necessarily like the highlight play, but they set up their team for a massive amount of damage. And you lose your life, yeah, it's first blood, but being able to pick up a kill onto the jungler on the other side, it's a Batz who has been farming a little better than iceice. That's a worthwhile kill for them to trade out for. So I think that was a really solid play for the Ferryman. The only thing they lose out on is that first blood bounty gold.
Well, and was about a half-level lead for StreakUp. Coast makes his way to level 13. StreakUp just fine, of course, on the Jing way, getting the assist. Coast the one picking up the first kill of the game for the Highland Ravens. Again, though, Gore, looks like a different mindset as far as build goes. And Coast sticking with Transcendence, Abo, Wind Demon, Silver Branch later on. StreakUp something a bit more standard for Jing way with the Icavale, Aussie, Wind Demon, crit, those sorts of things a bit later on. Could be an advantage here. If the Highland Ravens start to fight, you have an ultimate from VaporishCoast to make it a 5 versus 4 if the fight really does start to break out. But looks like the Styx Ferrymen enough wherewithal to disengage and keep Coast on left.
Honestly, that Icavale for StreakUp, to me, it enables more fights like this, right? Early on, it gives you that capability.
Well, he's got to go somewhere. Got to go somewhere. Normally, it's Coast taking the 1v1. This time, on the receiving end of it, nearly dies. Has to use the ultimate. And a nice win there for the Styx Ferrymen as a team because you limit the global pressure and StreakUp maybe mentally. And Rottwen's not going to be able to get much done here. In fact, sends a stun towards adapting just as a goodbye. So, it gives you a great glimpse, Score, at why the build maybe looks the way it does for StreakUp.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the PG-13 appropriate phrase of what I want to say.
Okay.
And I'm trying to translate it. I guess you just slap really hard, right? In these fights, if you're going back and forth, you're going to hit intrinsically harder. That's what the Icavale is allowing for you than what you're going to get out of the other side. Coast might have a small, technically, item lead right now just because he had to go back and upgrade it to the tier 2 for some of those crits. But I think that StreakUp is in a brilliant position to continue this fighting. And the thing that I think is more interesting to me and what I'm most excited in is not just increasing your physical power. As you can see there, reducing your opponent's attack speed. Again, really good item for boxing early on against opponents. But it's that in congregation, let's say, with the Aussie, right? Being able to work together, those two items, it's something that I was actually thinking Coast might have been able to afford more. I think they traded the Transcendence for the Dominance. I almost would have preferred to see some sort of lifesteal for sustain and survivability in some of those late game fights because this Aussie, the passive procs in, I think, 35% health. You get below that, you get an immense amount of lifesteal from that point forward. And yeah, you can see it there. So you jump a ton of lifesteal. And we've seen people full heal off of this. So if you're boxing, you've got an item that's winning for you. If you drop low, now not only is this item helping you box better, but you've got another one that's going to heal you back up. So when these crits are online and they are hitting pretty hard, if you're looking at StreakUp, you're still theoretically going to have a massive advantage over what Coast is bringing into this fight. Right. The downside is going to be Coast has a little more power in the build, I think, coming from the Atalantas, but specifically more crit chance. So those are going to become flying a little bit more often in those team fights, a little more in favor of Coast. Yep. For the heavy hitters, I think the consistent hitters will go to StreakUp.
Should be. And I think StreakUp, as we highlighted in the post-game desk after Game 1, put together a real nice performance for the Styx Ferrymen. StreakUp's been a very consistent player at the SEC level as well. Been a lot of fun to watch the player grow.
Yeah.
Get more comfortable. Even with squads changing, teams changing around them, it seems like StreakUp has been pretty consistent. A nice little gold lead actually built up for the Styx Ferrymen, Gore. Similar position to where the Ravens were in Game 1 around this point. About 2,000 gold in the lead are the Ferrymen. Have to imagine with this Merlin, though, if you're looking at the Ravens, ways to shrink up the gold lead. You got a Merlin, Already Rada Tahuti, Soul Gem, Soul Reaver, and Coast with a few strong items underway. Gotta imagine could consider maybe starting one of these neutral objectives.
Yeah, honestly, Merlin usually opens that conversation super early on, right? I mean, Gold Furies, Pyromancers, he burns them quickly. The downside, it always comes down to secure. I mean, that was the conversation, all last year, Season 7, we had a lot of that conversation of like, cool, Merlin can kill it fast. What do you do when it's low, though? And I think that's what they're going to be lacking a little bit of. Not as much, though, with a huge ult from both the Hunbats and the Geb. They'll be fine.
Man, we have seen 1v1s now a couple of times. StreakUp dashes forward. Crit for Coast makes a difference. StreakUp's got to back away. iceice blinks over the wall. Misses the lockdown, but has the damage. And Coast in a 1 versus 2. Not able to turn it around. Set up by StreakUp, knocked down by iceice.
I mean, this is just, again, good play. They get a nice pick, 40 seconds without that one. And with GunTTeRR being as safe as they are, that should be the turn. In my eyes, that's where the Ferryman could look for a Fury, but instead they're going maybe for more blood. I think if that hammer connects from Rottwen, definitely more blood. As it is now, they might have warmed a little too much time. They might still be able to get a Pyromancer, but maybe not anything as big, heavy commitment otherwise.
Right. It's like BeAzrael able to steal away the blue buff. Nice little win there. Dazzling offensive as BeAzrael is 2 levels up over Chxnnahh. I thought that the Soul Eater was going to kind of stabilize this lane, but looks like BeAzrael with Golden Blade, Berserker, Shoguns has felt okay over the last few minutes. And this Amaterasu, come rotation time, going to be painful up against the Highland Ravens. That's something the Ravens are going to have to look at as well. So you get BeAzrael, you get, an AoE coerce. I mean, StreakUp is just going to get so facilitated later on in this game. You might have to consider some spectral armors here shortly if you're the Highland Ravens. Have seen a bit of presence from adapting over on the left side of the map, Gore, but other than that, feels like it's been very reactive from the Highland Ravens. Maybe a team that's okay with things slowing down, but maybe shouldn't be with the way that the gold lead is going.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, the farm has been so consistent from the Ferryman. Again, no Pyromancers, no Gold Furies, no crazy big objectives. This is just neutral farm, steals, things like that. And that is a massive deal to have to go up against. I mean, last game, it was the Ravens, right? More consistently, they were stealing objectives. So they were getting like mid camps. They were going in for purple buff, red buff, blue buff, any kind of steals. Now they've been losing a lot of that farm. These Scorpions, they're not something that we talk about maybe too often, because in the grand scheme, getting your own greater Scorpion is just going to happen. But if it gets stripped away from you a few times, all of a sudden, it's a lot of gold towards the Ferryman. Now, I think in a spot where they're going to be able to really funnel that lead into something massive.
Pyromancer pulled by the Highland Ravens as the Gold Fury confirmed by the Styx Ferrymen on the other side of the map. Ravens at least get one of the 2 objectives. 4,500 gold. Goodness, the Ravens just bleeding out the Ravens right now. Ferrymen, rather. Did I say the Ravens bleeding out the Ravens? We don't in a way, I guess they are bleeding themselves out, but it's really the Ferrymen who've just taken control of the farm and the objectives across the map. Chxnnahh able to avoid death through the dazzling offensive. Rottwen transforms, though. Calvin still has Cataclysm, might need it. Good pushback from GunTTeRR on the setup. Cataclysm saves Calvin's life, but how about the jump back in from Rottwen? It's a double Fear No Evil from adapting, and an ult in from VaporishCoast. GunTTeRR will float away, and all of the Styx Ferrymen stay on the map.
I think the Ravens are happy. Both teams are happy that they managed to keep everybody, but the Ravens more so, because otherwise, that would have been the position for the Ferryman to go back. Coast is even maybe getting aggressive. You've got some decent health bars here between him and Angry, but not enough to fight into the Ferryman. Luckily, though, and as was said, the Ferryman take too much in the process of falling back. They can strip away some of the more neutral camps, and maybe some not so neutral camps, the more Ravens-oriented camps, but they don't get a Fire Giant. And that is the big downside for the Ferryman. If that fight goes their way a little harder, whether it's having healthier, players after the fight, or outright just getting a couple of kills against the Ravens, that's a free FG. But now they have to play it again. They have to play it the hard way, a little more slow roll. And I think that this is a good spot for them to be in still, right? Gold lead in their favor. Kill leads have been going in their favor. And they're good at finding picks. I think that if they can catch adapting, more than likely it would probably only be adapting or Calvin right now, off guard. That's going to be pretty easy to burn them down. Chxnnah's going to be a little harder to burn through, But we've seen it happen before, so you can't necessarily count it out.
Rottwen has been on point on this Fafnir so far. As we crest over the 22-minute mark. The 2-1 game for the Styx Ferrymen. I wonder, yeah, I mean, because we haven't seen much in the way of immense damage, immense team fighting yet. I wonder if the Styx Ferrymen feel comfortable enough just to start up an FG here shortly. Do get some damage onto Calvin. Nice knockup, but is it enough? Double stun as well with the Cataclysm and big damage from Angry. Big Fear No Evil from Adapting. My
massive.
Goodness, this fight is exactly what the Highland Ravens want, but they've killed no one. Adapting is the only one to die. Rottwen gets a stun on Chxnnahh as well. VaporishCoast into the back line. Ends up killing off StreakUp, but BeAzrael has a dazzling offensive. Finally, some kills are dropping for the Highland Ravens after an initiation like that. The Styx Ferrymen only lose 2 and are able to get a kill onto Adapting.
I mean, that is a good play. Talk about a perfect Fear No Evil. Look, this is a team that it's damn near impossible to get a Fear No Evil like that off on, and he did it anyway. Yeah, it cost him his life, but that's what you're doing. Again, that's something I had mentioned in the last game, right? It balances things out, and you give your life for a little bit of success. At first, though, that success did not seem like it was coming. I mean, what a beautiful ult for a very lack of follow-up immediately. The follow-up after a couple of seconds, though, gets pretty clean. I think Coast going deep to chase down StreakUp was really good, although StreakUp is almost able to turn it around. Again, a little bit more crit, a little harder hitting, and admittedly a higher health bar going into the fight. Ends up helping Coast out a lot there. And Rottwen was just in a bad spot to begin with, right? He was pushed up against the wall by the Fear No Evil, then goes into the transition. It was not going to be easy. Just like that wasn't going to be easy. I wonder what Azrael was thinking there. I mean, maybe with everybody on left, you pull one person like a Huang over with you. I could see shredding the Fire Giant there if you had 2 or 3 people, but
Yeah.
trying to do it with the Ravens all alive and not noticing ever, that would be crazy.
Wishful thinking from BeAzrael. I was wondering, again, what I was wondering prior to that fight is if the Ferrymen feel like they're enough in the lead that they could just start up an objective, but when a near perfect initiation from the Ravens happens, and Angry is just set up to do exactly what a Merlin wants, that was always going to be a difficult fight for the Styx Ferrymen to win. So good luck for the Ravens. Again, resilient. You know, last game it was the Ferrymen slowing the game down, taking the objectives as they fall, and you know, then really back and forth individual picks ended up making the difference. This game it feels like the Ravens, the team, having to play the resilience. So you're relying on a great initiation to flip the game around. Angry's got to be careful here. A little damage over the horizon potentially. It's a tier 1 tower looked at by the Highland Ravens. Looks like to be meeting here towards mid. I'd be surprised fighting over this Primal Fury when the Fire Giant is still over on right.
This is where things, I don't even want to say lull out. It's just all depending on the initiation. That's a really good jump in from Chxnnahh, and unfortunately, again, for the Ferryman, that's the downside of dealing with this Robin right now. You just can't kill him.
GunTTERR's disengage is down, but Rottwen is low. Dazzling offensive through from BeAzrael. Fear No Evil, great, but it sent the Styx Ferrymen into their own backline. VaporishCoast dies with all of his actives and his ultimate up. Now Calvin, the one being chased down, and the Styx Ferrymen have found the opening pick.
This is a really good position to try and follow up if they want to, but I don't know. It's still dangerous. Look, Chxnnahh angry. They're so full and adapting. He doesn't have ult, but still an overhand smash hits hard.
Styx Ferrymen get the Primal Fury. Azrael low, but able to dash away from the damage from Angry. So pick plus kill onto the Primal Fury for the Ferrymen, and decent death timer on VaporishCoast. I wonder if there's a reset and rush to FG now for the Styx Ferrymen squad.
This is a spot where not only do I think you rush it, I mean, 20 seconds left on Coast with the Fear No Evil absolutely still down. Cataclysm should still be down by the time you start it. I think you rush it, and if worst case scenario, Calvin steps forward, you just kill him. Chxnnahh is the only person you truly have to worry about. Angry as well because of the burn potential, but both of those, at least in Angry, easy to burn and kill off. Chxnnahh, not quite as easy to kill off.
Calvin also not very easy to melt down. Pyromancer goes to the Styx Ferrymen. VaporishCoast is up, of course, can mitigate the travel time back from base, otherwise there'd still maybe be a small advantage. Who are we kidding? These two teams have slow played every objective on the map for the last 2 games. No way the Styx Ferrymen going to rush this one down. 6,000 gold in the lead, though. Should give you a bit of confidence. It's 0-2 for adapting on the Hun Batz, 2-0, or 1-0 rather for iceice on the flip side with 2 assists. And a lot of damage on this Bastet. It's upgraded Jotuns, Titan's Bane. I believe there's a Brawler's Beat Stick in that build. There is, final item so far. Haven't seen the insta-delete from the Bastet yet, but enough sets of beads down, angry, a bit susceptible for 45 or so seconds. Got to keep your eyes on the pull.
That is going to be where things, I think, can change dramatically. iceice hasn't necessarily been a crazy highlight overall for the Ferryman. Hasn't necessarily been a detriment either, right? 1-0-2, very solid game so far, considering the amount of kills that are on the board. 3 out of the 4 affected. But being able to find that ult, especially weaving it through, finding a high-priority target, and someone without the beads like Angry, that just commits things so heavily to you. This is just ridiculous, if I'm going to be honest with you. The fact that Chxnnahh can keep doing this asinine pathing and getting away with it. I mean, but Chxnnah is no worse off now than they were while they were surrounded by 4 people deep on their side of the jungle.
Now, BeAzrael, the damage mitigated to look at this game. 62,000 damage mitigated.
It's impressive.
For BeAzrael. But the higher damage given number is for Chxnnah at 33,000, highest in the game so far. The Ravana has affected a whole mountain of damage. Both solo laners in subtle ways have really impacted the map. It's going to be difficult to burn either of them down. Both have gotten Spectral. There's a Spectral for Rottwen as well, so VaporishCoast is going to have to auto-attack a whole lot more often. And then Calvin, of course, with a passive. So really, both of these ADCs, with the way their builds have gone, a bit mitigated. But StreakUp a full kin size advantage.
Yep.
Over VaporishCoast right now.
You want to talk about killing tanks?
Talk about killing tanks, that'll help.
Yeah, this is going to be, look, with the Silver Branch, you only have one source of crit right now, so that's the difference. StreakUp isn't going to hit with the massive amount. Well, I guess maybe not the biggest difference, right? Coast only still has one as well. But last time, after the Silver Branch, Coast went into the Deathbringer and to the Envenom Deathbringer. StreakUp here, with this chin size, kills tanks faster, should deal with Chxnnah better, should deal with Calvin better. Has some inherent crit chance already. But this is going to be something that I think favors... Well, I mean, it favors the Ferrymen with the way they've been playing. But you do have to worry in just straight-up boxing matches between Coast and StreakUp. That amount of power is still helpful. But once that Deathbringer, if it is a Deathbringer, comes online for Coast, that's going to be a huge shift.
Takes almost no damage on his way into this fight. Azrael almost laughing at the damage that Angry is doing to him. Divine Ruin, final item for Angry. Will help out with some of the sustain. I mean, such a good applicator of Divine Ruin makes plenty of sense. Wondered if we would see it earlier on, but a unique build for Angry out of mid. Second highest damage in the game, nothing to scoff at from the Merlin. But the Huang right on his heels. Gone for more of a standard build. Has GunTTERR, Kronos, Magus, Charon's Coin. Fitting for his team, as we've already discussed. Then Soul Reaver and Soul Gem for some extra burst. Seems like we're just gonna dance around this Fire Giant. We're no strangers to the first FG of an EU game being enhanced, but who will it go to? Right now, both teams equally low on health. Adapting, losing the 1v1 to iceice, and iceice finds the advantage for the Styx Ferrymen. A dazzling offensive from BeAzrael, chasing down the backline, forces the beads off of Angry. Up and over from Rottwen, stuns Calvin. But just trying to disengage now healthily are the Styx Ferrymen.
Yeah, this is a good spot to potentially stay aggressive. Azrael, with the amount of mitigated damage, yeah, it's good that you got out of there, but you got to play careful.
Uh-oh, Chxnnah links forward. And a lot of damage out from Angry. GunTTERR sends some damage over the wall, nearly grabs a kill on a Calvin. Coast has ulted to the right side of the map. StreakUp with a good knock-up will help the rest of the Styx Ferrymen get out of this fight.
I mean, that is a good, again, you keep all 5, adapting's down, but only for 20 more seconds. It's not the overwhelming victory that you want in a fight like this, right? Like, you normally get a kill like that. Ideally, you're coming out with some green health bars. We're talking about an enhanced Fire Giant. I mean, at this point, we'd already seen 2 Fire Giants go down, right? One non-enhanced, one enhanced, 31 minutes. Actually, it might have just been the one at 31 minutes in. But that is something that is a very significant change of pace for these two teams. I mean, this is such a massive objective to be able to pick up at this point of the game. And Dave, no one's been convincing in their fight to get it. I mean,
yeah, I'm
every
unconvinced.
time it is back and forth. I think with the Fear No Evil up, with Cataclysm up, you have to give a small advantage over towards the Ravens if they can get the right engage.
Watch out. Hunters of Bast flies just by the wayside. iceice unsuccessful. I was about to say, some good targets. No beads on Adapting, no beads on Angry. This would have been great for iceice to connect on with the ultimate. Start off this fight on a strong note. Or for BeAzrael. Now that Dazzling Offensive is also down. Damage from GunTTeRR just shy of connecting. BeAzrael has no teleport. So a reset will take him all the way back to base. Chxnnahh just controlling the backline with 4 members of the Styx Ferrymen. But up and over the wall, Calvin will take a bit of damage. We are playing a tug of war of damage here, Gore. And sustain up and deal some poke damage, back away, deal some more poke damage. Highland Ravens at least get the Primal Fear, or the Pyromancer rather, as ultimate and jump out from Adapting, but a pullback in from GunTTeRR actually ignites this team fight. Angry, locked alone in the back, and the Aegis used in the flicker will not get him out to safety. StreakUp knocked up, StreakUp stays alive. Chxnnahh will not finish off the kill. Chxnnahh will die instead, and the Styx Ferrymen in one fell swoop may have just ended the game.
But this is where things are awkward. 3 towers standing, it's 1 person, 50 seconds. That's a lot of time, but with the buffs to towers, with the buffs to Phoenixes, and more importantly, the one that's going to matter the most, the buff to the Titan, can they burn through? I think they can get this Phoenix no problem.
I think they've got time.
You've got time? Honestly, yeah, push for it. I think you have to go into the end here.
How disruptive can Calvin be, though? Doesn't have Cataclysm. StreakUp is low. I think there's enough damage. Styx Ferrymen, yeah, they'll burn through this. 15 seconds, not enough time, and the Styx Ferrymen in one fight, they would have knocked down the Highland Ravens here in Game 2 and take the 2-0 win.
Still, got a little close, right? I mean, StreakUp, there was a point. Like, that Aegis put in maybe more work than any Aegis I've seen in a couple of weeks. I mean, that Aegis was working.
If he dies, I don't think
numbers.
they...
Yeah, if he dies, I don't even know if they get a Fire Giant if he dies. I think if StreakUp goes down there, things are again, a wash. We wait the 2 minutes, reset, come back in, look for the fight. I think it's a good job staying alive there for him. Again, that Aegis putting in a lot of work. It's a really good call on when that was used and how much utility that got. But the sweep back for the Ferryman was just impressive around there, to the point where that Fire Giant, I mean, we spent 10 minutes, 15 minutes dancing around it. It didn't even matter at that point because they just won so outright that they were able to surge forward.
Yeah, it's a great look for the Styx Ferrymen, especially when we outlined, and we'll look at standings and stuff later on, how important it was, especially against the Highland Ravens. Ferrymen, that may be the second most intimidating squad over in the EU SEC. Didn't get to see much early on in the way of kills and fighting, but did see a bit. iceice on the Bastet dives towards coast, and at least slows down a bit of the scaling. And you know, Gore, in a game like this, these types of kills do end up mattering. Even though the game goes another 20 minutes with only another kill or two, the ability for the Styx Ferrymen to compound their gold just on a kill or two is really what makes the difference. So yes, the highlight is the kills and the fights themselves, but the Furies, the farm, the Pyromancers, that's really where the Ferrymen won this game.
To quote our predecessors, the stuff after the stuff, right? Like, the thing, like, you get the kills, that's cool, that's neat, but because as you just highlighted, how little they were rolling through, it was how well, like, can you get the Pyromancer right there? I think it was a good steal by the Ravens, but it's a heavy commitment in order to make it work out, right? And that's where things go downhill. I mean, you know, Coast is easily taken care of, and that's where safety comes back into it. I mean, look at StreakUp throughout all of this. First off, this is the Aegis I think I'm talking about right there.
How does he
all
not
that
die?
damage that he gets out of there, and the fact that then you know, you get
Just
Aussie
a
passive.
jealous.
Aussie passive is going to help you re-heal, but your Jing Wei as well. On top of all that, you're just going to get out a little bit easier. It's not as beautiful of a slash line as game number 1, but I think StreakUp does a lot of work towards the end. The entire squad there for the Styx put out a ton of work. And I think that they're able to well, be happy because of it. They come out with a win.
Do I dare say it, Gore? A bad set from Adapting. 0-4 here in game number 2.
13k damage.
Think back to game 1, a couple important individual picks onto Adapting and turning around to game 1. It was tough. You know, tough to find kills in this set. Tough for Adapting to find his impact in game number 2. And a great look for the Styx Ferrymen to grab themselves not only a win, but a 2-0 win over the Highland Ravens. That's got to give some momentum to this team moving forward.
I think there was a lot of it, and like they draft really well, I think, for the Ferrymen. They just did a lot that was good for them. And Game 2, I think even more so than Game 1, because Game 1, it was, what can you do to fight back? This time around, it was already ahead. It's like, cool, you've got some of that gold. How do you make it work for you? Where are you going to put this pressure? And despite the fact that they had superior burn on the other side, the Styx were able to keep up a lot better.
They were, and the Styx Ferrymen able to grab a win 2-0 over the Highland Ravens in our second and final EU set of the day. Remember, if you want to watch the Wargs versus the Aru Scorpion set, that'll be tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time prior to the SPL and the SPL waiting room. So check out that set. That'll be happening tomorrow. We got a couple North American sets for you a bit later on today. But how do these standings change up now? Impacted. You got a couple teams kind of grouped up in the middle there. Styx Ferrymen, Highland Ravens, both at 2-2. Aru Scorpions, talk about the turnaround that team has had. And on the flip side, the turnaround in the wrong direction that the Wargs have had, down to 0-3.
And the Gladiators.
And the Gladiators. The EU SEC glow looks a lot different than it did in Phase 1.
And I'm living for it, man. I mean, the Scorpions were a team that almost every week it was very easy to count out. Now they're someone that you have to keep your eyes on. The Wargs, the Gladiators, kind of falling down as far as they have, has been surprising, because I think this is a team that up to this point, at least in Phase 1, was very impressive. And it's all, again, a couple of roster changes coming into Phase 2 that's shaken up the entire region of Europe this much. You know, we kind of expected Hex Mambo to be as successful as they are, but being able to see some of the either returns and players like adapting, or just some of the plays that some of these teams have made, I think that we're in for an interesting latter half of the year.
Agreed. Eyes on the growth for the Styx Ferrymen and their ability to take some sets off top teams moving forward. The Styx Ferrymen, they're 2-0 over the Highland Ravens, ends our EU portion of the day here in the SMITE Challenger circuit. We have got a couple North American best of 3 sets coming up next.